Thank you. I've been a supporter of the National Catholic Rural Life for a long time. Brother David Andrews and I are served together on the founding. We're founding board members of the Organization for Competitive Markets. So I really appreciate the work of the National Catholic Rural Life. Eating is a moral act. How food choices impact planet, people, animals, health, and community. Agriculture is a business, not a way of life. Agriculture is not a vocation. Get over it. It's a business. This is what the land-grant universities, those places where our tax dollars are sent, has taught students for the last 40 years. This is the reason we have been shoved into this industrial model of agriculture to a very, very large extent, is because of the teaching of land-grant universities. Who founded land-grant universities? Which president? We're going to have to give a hat on this one. Lincoln. Jefferson. Abraham Lincoln. Along with USDA. He did it in the same year. And would he ever be appalled today to see what goes on in these institutions, as well as in the agency of the USDA? Where does your food come from? Does it come from a family farm where people live on that farm and take care of those animals and those crops, and where crop and livestock production are combined in the same place, where that manure from the animals goes on the crop and the crop goes into the animals? Where do you buy your food? Or is it a Wall Street-based company, perhaps from Smithfield, that just sold to the Chinese company, Shineway? Let us not forget that the cultivation of the earth is the most important labor of man. When tillage begins, other arts will follow. The farmers, therefore, are the founders of civilization. Here I was in Evergreen, Colorado, my 10th year class reunion. I was already into agriculture and production and all this stuff out in St. Francis, Kansas. And Tina Owen's mother, where our picnic was being held, asked me, "Mike, what are you doing now?" And I say, "I farm and ranch." She says, "Cool, you're a wealth creator." And I thought, weird, what do you mean by that? I'm a wealth creator. I just farm. I just raise livestock, a wealth creator. She says, "Yeah." She says, "My grandfather taught me when I was a small child that farmers create wealth. They plant a seed in the ground. They add water and sunshine. And as if in a continual miracle, wealth is created." She said, "My grandfather told me farmers create wealth. Everyone else does the laundry." Ben Franklin, where did her grandfather get that information, which I thought was wonderful, and perhaps was the point at which I decided to look at my profession differently. It meant so much more to me after that conversation that I started thinking about my education and really what the industrial ag model, is that really serving us well? Is that serving creation well? Ben Franklin says, there seem to be but 3 ways for a nation to acquire wealth. The first is by war, as the Romans did, in plundering their conquered neighbors. This is called robbery. The second is by commerce, which is generally cheating. Commerce? What's he talking about? Hey, do you all remember the East India Company and their relationship with the Crown? The Tea Party? We got really upset back then when they were treating us like colonists, like when they had this extraction model of economics applied to our colonies, and we were producing the wealth that was being extracted back by the Crown and the East India Company. Ben Franklin was troubled by that relationship, felt that there was a lot of unfairness around that. So he had an attitude about corporations, which was the East India Company. The second by commerce, which is generally cheating. The third by agriculture, the only honest way wherein man received a real increase of the seed thrown into the ground in a kind of continual miracle, wrought by the hand of God in his favor as a reward for his innocent life and virtuous industry. Why is it then, throughout history, there has only been very short periods of time when farmers actually prospered? Farmers throughout history have been peasants. Farmers throughout history have been serfs on the land, serving a landlord. This is the history of farming. But in America, that was supposed to change. The cowboy, an endangered species, the national security no one is talking about. The national security issue no one is talking about. We've lost over 40% of our ranchers in the last 35 and 40 years. We've lost 90% of our pork producers. We've lost 86% of our dairy farmers from the land in the last 35 to 40 years. That should concern you. There's money in the food business. I fly a small plane back and forth from my cattle operation to Colorado Springs, where we process the carcasses and distribute beef and all kinds of meats into the Colorado Springs marketplace, also some into Denver. And so I go back and forth every week in my small single-engine four-place aircraft. I land in Colorado Springs and I see this amazing number of corporate jets on the ramp. And I have been in Eagle, Colorado at Christmas. and I know what corporate jets in bunches look like. And this blew Eagle, Colorado away. I mean, or Jackson, Wyoming at Christmas, or Aspen, Colorado at Christmas. This was amazing. I couldn't believe this gathering of aircraft. And so I go into the FBO, the fixed base operator, and I said, hey, wait, what is going on here? Oh, there's a food conference at Broadmoor. Really, a food conference? Cool. I jumped in my vehicle, I ran over to the Broadmoor, and here, I couldn't get in the front door for the golf bags. What we had was a gathering of the masters of the food universe. This was amazing. I went and looked at the agenda. I mean, let me in. They weren't worried. I looked at the agenda, I saw what was going on. You know, everybody was there. All these big corporations, global corporations. But guess who was given the talk on sustainability? A hat. Walmart. Walmart was giving the talk on sustainability. Really? Those more efficient light bulbs, right? Let's put some solar panels on the top of these massive buildings that we've put up. You know, this is what we're really talking about. And so I went back to the airport and I said, you know, I'm just wondering who owns these airplanes. Well, if you put an VIN number in Google and you search, you'll come up with the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, database on aircraft. You can look at my airplane too, it's right in there. And you can find out who owns these aircraft. Now these are the masters, some of the masters of the universe of food. And you know, look at Dean down here. This Dean Manufacturing. That is the largest dairy processor in the entire world. Cargill is the largest privately held corporation on the planet. I didn't say public, did I? It's a privately held corporation. So you really don't know what's going on inside that company. But this is who is meeting at the Broadmoor. Well, I thought it was an interesting contrast. When I went back to St. Francis, Kansas, I took a few pictures and combined them with some others that I already had. And this is how things look back where the food is being produced. You've seen how the folks live that buy what farmers produce and sell it to all of us, consumers. How are the boys on the ranch and the farm doing? These are the people who put up 85% of the capital required to put food on the plate. The masters of the universe of food put up about 15% of the total capital required to transform a commodity, whether it's a beef animal, a chicken, a pig, or grain, into food. Yet, how is it they have so much power that they capture all these dollars? The grocery store in St. Francis, Kansas, it's bankrupt. 35 miles away is Goodland, Kansas. 10 years ago, they put in a Walmart store. A young man that opened the Walmart store in Goodland, Kansas, the meat department, came to work at Ranch Foods Direct 10 years ago, or 11 years ago. Having just opened the Walmart store's meat market, that super Walmart in Goodland, he said, as soon as we bankrupted the last independent grocery store, In Goodland, we raised meat prices 18% in one day. Where is the Justice Department when we need them? America is becoming a land without farmers. The plutocratic remaking of America has a parallel in the countryside. In rural America, less than 3% of farmers make more than 63% of the money, including government subsidies. The results of this emerging feudal economy are everywhere. Large areas of the United States are becoming impoverished. Farm towns with abandoned farmhouses, deserted land, more and more of the countryside is devoted to massive factory farms and plantations. This grocery store looks like our schools at St. Francis, Kansas, where we have lost half of the kids in our schools. The small parishes across western Kansas and eastern Colorado have got very few people sitting in those pews and supporting those parishes. I was in San Antonio, Texas in 2002 at the National Cattlemen's Beef Association convention. John Tyson was there to announce that Tyson was going to buy IDP, the biggest beef packer in the world. Tyson was going to buy them the biggest chicken operation, or one of the biggest chicken operations. So I introduced myself to John Tyson. I said, I'm Mike Callicrate. I'm a lead plaintiff in the lawsuit against IDP. And he says, what lawsuit? Surprised. He's fixing to buy this company. What lawsuit? I said, well, I'll tell you, John, it could be a lawsuit that could cost IDP more than their entire market capitalization. It's based on the Packers and Stockyards Act of 1921, which says that a meat company, a big packer, if they do anything, even so much as reduces competition, they can't do it. But the law hasn't been enforced. And so myself and other cattlemen have filed this class action lawsuit against IDP to try to restore fairness to the marketplace. And he said, well, you know, I know all about the Packers and Stockyards Act. And I said, well, I know you do. And you know how you wouldn't be where you are today had it been properly enforced. You wouldn't be as big as you are. You wouldn't be able to exploit chicken farmers the way that you do had that act been enforced, which was meant to break up the packer monopoly of the 1906 to 1920 period, the day of the robber barons. And so they say, well, you're really suing the wrong people. You really should be suing Walmart. Walmart tells us what to do, and we have no choice but to pay you less. Well, I can't sue Walmart. Illinois Brick, I'm indirectly affected. I'm blocked from being able to sue Walmart. Besides that, I can sue Tyson, and Tyson can sue Walmart. Well, he's not, because they gave him their meat counters. Poultry, pork, and beef. That's power. Now he can control both supply and demand on all the meats through the largest food retailer in America. I would argue that there is no greater threat to our economic and social well-being than Walmart. Walmart is abusive. If you could only sense the human exploitation, the animal suffering, and the environmental degradation when you walked through the doors of a Walmart store, what would that do for their business? But no, what you see is the marketing campaign that draws people in. This is what happens when you speak out. When a pig is getting squeezed, it's its moral responsibility to squeal. When a cattle feeder is being cheated in the marketplace, it's his responsibility to speak out. But if you do, this is what happens. This is my 12,000 head cattle feeding operation in St. Francis. When those big packers boycotted my cattle operations because I had sued IDP and I was raising heck about the injustice of the marketplace, 15 families lost their jobs and went back to St. Francis, and many had to look at the welfare system to get them through until they figured out where they were going to go and what they were going to do. And this has happened all across the country as we have bankrupted the small operations for lack of a fair market to be able to access and get a fair share of what people are paying for food. The average return on equity is an interesting number. Retail grocery stores in the last 6 years, return on equity has been 21%. That's not a competitive market. This is commodities. This is food. This is nothing special. 21% is proof of market power, abusive market power. Meat packing, constantly complaining that they never make money, made a 17% return on equity in the last 6 years, while the farming and ranching sector, again, puts up 85% of the total equity it takes to put food on your plate, had a negative return. In the beginning, God entrusted the earth and its resources to the common stewardship of mankind to take care of them, master them by labor, and enjoy their fruits. The goods of creation are destined for the whole human race. The Catechism of the Catholic Church. The husbandman that laboreth must be the first partaker of the fruits. This is inscribed above the portico of the USDA building in Washington, D.C. Yet those USDA workers go in and out of that door every day and live to empower corporate agriculture. They have sold out family farm agriculture a long time ago as big corporations have captured that agency. OCM did a white paper called USDA Inc. several years ago, describing this revolving door that goes from agency back to industry and back to agency again. So the big corporations are writing the rules. We can legislate anything they want. They can certainly reverse the intent of legislation through rulemaking, and they have. And so we really look at three things. We can legislate, we can litigate. We've been unsuccessful in that. We actually won the lawsuit. We won the lawsuit against Tyson IVP. The jury awarded us $1.28 billion. We didn't care about the money. The Packers were taking that much from us every month. What we wanted is injunctive relief in the market fixed so that we could all have equal access and a fair price paid back to the farm and ranch gate. Well, the judge threw out the jury verdict. We appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court that day had two cases before them. They were either going to hear the cattleman's case for fair markets, or the other case was the Anna Nicole Smith Family Feud case. And you know which one they heard, don't you? Because you certainly never heard about a case of fair markets for cattle producers. They heard the Anna Nicole Smith Family Feud case, and the cattlemen were thrown right into the Tyson meat grinder. In fact, not only that case was taken away from the cattlemen after the jury awarded them $1.28 billion, but we had to pay Tyson's court costs as well of $80,000. It's unfair and it's unjust. Concentration of power and wealth in the hands of a few has always been a major threat to human fairness, to social justice, to a fair economy. Big food standing in the middle with their hand in the farmer's, well, actually their foot on the farmer's neck and their hand in the consumer's pocket. This is exactly the problem of 1921 that Senator John Kendrick explained on the Senate floor in advocating for the Packers Stockyards Act. He says we have big monopolistic meat packers that are standing between producers on one hand and consumers on the other, and they're exploiting everyone. This is nothing new. Senator Kendrick was simply following up from this time. Again, the time of the robber barons. Democratic Party, this is in 1893. That ain't my fence to fix. The fence represents a fair marketplace. It's broken, it's falling down. The Republicans said, I ain't got time to tend to it. Today, there's no fence. Today, it's flat on the ground. There's nothing even remains of a marketplace for agricultural producers. This is a market that is controlled and fully under monopoly power of big corporations that cooperate rather than compete. I love this guy, G.K. Chesterton, a Catholic philosopher. Of that time that we just talked about, too much capitalism does not mean too many capitalists, but too few capitalists. Corner, good book, put it on your reading list. You may have seen the the 60 Minutes segment last Sunday about Luxottica, the sunglasses monopoly. Chapter 3 of this book. I don't care if it's beef, beer, or sunglasses. Our industries are captured by monopoly power. Foodopoly, another really good read. It's a recent book. Winona Howder, Food and Water Watch, wrote this book, and she gets aggressive. She says we have to break up the monopoly. We have to break up these big corporations. We can begin with Walmart. Animal husbandry used to be taught 50 years ago. I didn't get taught animal husbandry in 1975, but it used to be taught. This is on the backside of a barn on the campus of Iowa State University. But it's been rejected. It's been rejected and replaced with animal science. If you have men who exclude any of God's creatures from the shelter of compassion and pity, you will have men who will deal likewise with fellow men. So there's a serious problem in the industrial model of agriculture with humane treatment of animals. And we say, well, hey, what if Smithfield decides they want to be a little more humane and get rid of gestation crates maybe by 1920 or 2020, excuse me, and we're going to treat these sows a little better. Well, that doesn't fix it. For a person to be a serf in a humane hog factory isn't being a family farmer and an owner of those livestock and you're with ability to get a fair market and provide good care. Family farmers care for their livestock. They don't care just about their livestock, like a CEO of Smithfield who only cares about the P&L. We domesticated farm animals how many thousands of years ago? And we owe them good care. Are we pig producers or are we pork producers? We need to be pig producers with a fair market that turns it into pork. Our world is covered with salt water and grass and forage plants that we can't eat, salt water we can't drink. Fish can grow in the sea, and for us to eat, we should be sustainable. We should take care of that resource, God-given resource. Animals, ruminant animals in particular, are a wonderful gift. They can eat what we can't, and we can then reap the benefits from that production. What about manure? Vandana Shiva, I love Vandana Shiva. She's a philosopher, an activist, a physicist from India. Told Hillary Clinton on a visit over there, Vandana's friend asked Hillary, do you have cows at the White House? And Hillary said, no, we can't have cows at the White House. And the woman says, oh, I'm just so sorry, I mean, no cow to produce the bullock that pulls the plow, no milk, no cheese, no, all this. And Vandana then chimed in and said, Hillary, our cow dung is worth more than your Wall Street stocks. Is that not true? It's what fertilizes the soil. It's what makes those nutrients available so our food is healthy and good for us. Wendell Berry talks about the soil as the great connector of lives. We're hurrying here. This will be on mycallicrate.com and then click on the blog. So you'll be able to catch it there. Grassroots, the current system has led us to totalitarianism. This is a serious problem. How are we going to feed ourselves in the future when our biggest pork company is now going to be owned by China, our biggest beef company is owned by Brazil, JBS, and our biggest poultry company is owned by the same JBS Brazilian company? We are becoming foreign-owned very rapidly, unable to feed ourselves and becoming a net food importer. So what's the answer? Let's go around this thunderstorm, that if you fly through it, you will die. Don't sell to Walmart. Go around this thing, and let's connect consumers directly with eaters. This speaks for itself. I guess I could have had a D8, right? There's a lot wrong. This is where we can talk about the impact on health. High fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated vegetable oils, all this industrially produced food that's making us very, very sick. This is the problem. Future farm policy. Let's break up these agribusiness cartels. What do you get when you buy from local farmers? This is wonderful. People who love the land, who love their livestock, good stewardship, building communities. This is something we're working on in Colorado Springs. It's a public market. That's like going back thousands of years. Public markets have been around forever. But instead of going to the Big King Supers, to the Walmart, to the mall, whatever. Let's go to the public market where community is, where life happens, where food is healthy and good for you, where you can smell the coffee roaster, where you can drink the beer that's brewed on site, where the meat is healthy and you know where it comes from, and where all of the vegetables that are grown in the region are available for you, and those farmers earn a living wage. Thank you.